All right, so we're a little past a minute past the hour here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And in today's webinar, we're going to be covering the upcoming migration to ServiceNow platform analytics experience. And there's a lot that we're going to take you through today and the journey that lies ahead for all ServiceNow customers. So just to get intros out of the way for myself and Mitch, I'm Rob Walsh, one of the founders here at VividCharts. I lead our sales and go-to-market efforts. And we also have Mitch Stutler, who's going to be driving for the majority of the webinar today. Mitch, would you mind giving a quick introduction on yourself?
Of course. Thank you all for joining. I co-founded VividCharts with Rob, and I'm the CEO of the company. I focus more on the product side and the engineering side, and really the ServiceNow side too. That's what my background's in. So happy to dig into this today.
Awesome. Well, let's move to the next slide here and we'll lay out the agenda of what we're going to cover in the webinar today. So the quick intros, we're just going to give a little bit of background on VividCharts, the company, our area of expertise and areas of focus. Then we're going to give a little bit of background on the new platform analytics experience, the timeline that you have as a ServiceNow customer on when it's becoming available, which it already is, and when you're going to have to be migrated to this new experience. We're going to talk you through some of the terminology changes from the way reports and dashboards are handled today, how those are going to be termed in the new experience. And then Mitch is actually going to take you into a demo and show, the current, which will soon be the old way of creating reports and dashboards, and then take you through the new platform analytics experience and how things are going to work there. And then lastly, what we're going to talk about and kind of close out with is what you should be doing now as a ServiceNow customer to prepare, plan, and strategize for how you want to handle this migration and training your user base so that it goes smoothly. So with that, let's give a quick intro and background on VividCharts, the company, and then we'll get into the content. So just so you have a little bit of an understanding about VividCharts, Mitch and I started the company back in 2018. And really our goal at the time was to provide more flexibility from a reporting and data visualization perspective on the platform. And that started out with just building a software as a service application that's a plugin for the ServiceNow platform. And we continue to build and provide new releases out for customers for that actual product. Along that journey, we found with customers a need to provide, alongside a product, expert advisory services on overall reporting strategy, which is what kind of takes us into today's webinar. And all throughout that time, whether it's the product that we're providing or the expert services, we're working with, ServiceNow's best and brightest customers across the globe. We remain and will remain entirely focused on ServiceNow from a platform and reporting perspective. And ServiceNow actually is also an investor in VividCharts. So they're a partner with us financially, but also from a product perspective where we have relationships with their product teams, including the analytics group, which is going to be the area of focus for today. So that sets the stage a little bit on who we are and the topic that we're really focused on. So Mitch, let's move into some of the meat of the content for today, digging into the platform analytics experience.
Let's do it. Yep. So as we talked about, and we'll dig into a little bit more, we are moving to platform analytics. We being anybody who's listening to this, all of ServiceNow's customers. And the current guidance is that this will come with the Z release, the Zurich release. So this is available to you today. You could go do this right now if you wanted to and you were ready to do it. If you haven't done it by the Z release, at the point where you go and upgrade to Zurich, you will be automatically migrated to platform analytics. So that's currently slated for Q4 of 2025. Which maybe feels like a long time, but when you go to the calendar and you actually look at the business days, it's not that far out. So this is something that we really think people need to be thinking about today and planning for today. and getting ready for today. Ultimately, this is going to be a great thing. You'll see some of the new things with this, but if nothing else, the best part about platform analytics is all of the things you do with ServiceNow reporting and analytics are going to be under the same roof. If you've been on ServiceNow for a while, you know that if you got to go do a report, if you have to build a report, view a report, you do it over here. If you want to build a dashboard, you do it over there. If you want to go look at a performance analytics indicator, it's a separate spot. In platform analytics, that's all coming together in a very nice way. So I'm really excited about that for our customers. You could really make this into a very positive thing. I think there'll be parts of it that might feel like a bit of a chore, but it's also the perfect opportunity to assess your current reporting and data strategy and environment within your ServiceNow instance. You're going to have to be talking to your users anyways. This is a good time to either reinforce or communicate what you're trying to do as a reporting and data program in platform. So that is really the biggest silver lining to this that I think everybody needs to take advantage of. Now, all those good things I talked about, how it's all going to come under the same roof. With that, things will change. Where you were pointing people to build a report in the past is going to be in a different place. What things are called are going to be different. Where you point people to go consume something, maybe they're not even building, that's going to be a different place. So this is definitely going to have to be a very thoughtful and well-organized migration if you don't want it to fall flat. And there's going to be quite a bit of training required too. I think there's a lot of themes that we'll talk about that are going to be persistent. So people will pick it up pretty quickly and they'll know the new way of doing these things, but you still need to be thinking about those builders and those report consumers, those dashboard consumers in the new way of doing things here. Rob, anything to add from your seat, what you're seeing in the field around this migration? Are people aware of this? Are people planning?
I would say there's a little bit of awareness that there is a new product out there, a new analytics experience based on ServiceNow's communications. There is not a great awareness that it is a migration that's happening on the Zurich release and happening automatically at that point. So while there is a little bit of exploration happening out there just to get a feel for what's new and kind of how it's going to work in the future, there's not a great understanding that there is a very real time frame here that you have to manage this migration effectively. And that's what we're really looking to provide more detail on today so that you can better strategize internally and prep your ServiceNow platform team, but more importantly, your users, your report builders, and report consumers on how it's going to be in the future and be ready for that migration.
Without a doubt. And if you're watching this, today's June 26, 2024. If you're watching this and take some of the things we talk about today to practice, you'll be in good shape. It'll feel like you have a plan and you execute it. If you're going to wait until, I don't know, April of 2025 to start talking about this or thinking about it, you might have some issues. You might be behind the eight ball a little bit there. And one of the things that we did want to cover is some of the terminology changes or things that aren't changing. ServiceNow has done a pretty good job of creating a terminology glossary around platform analytics, which we could definitely link to. But most of these are pulled directly from it. A little bit of it, we're putting kind of our layman's terms on it. But let's just work through these. So the first one is platform analytics. So this is the product suite as a whole. It's not necessarily the pages you go to. It's everything that is involved here. One thing that ServiceNow is very explicit about here, which is good, is beware to not abbreviate platform analytics to PA, because that is an acronym that is already used, as many of you know, and that means performance analytics. So keep that in mind. It could be tempting to start calling this PA, but please don't do that. You'll get some confusion. The next thing we want to cover here is platform analytics experience. And this is referred to as PAE, which is probably going to be kind of tough initially, but we're going to try to reinforce that acronym whenever we're talking about the platform analytics experience. And this is an all under one roof new analytics experience. When I talked about how everything's coming to the same place, this is the place. So these are the sets of pages and experiences that you can basically interact with your data directly in platform. And one thing to note too is this was previously called a workspace, and they elevated this to its own experience. So it's not simply a workspace, but it is built with ServiceNow's next gen tech stack with everything involved. And I believe that is a big driver of this new world of reporting and running analytics within the ServiceNow platform. I just want to call this out as well because the PAs get a little interesting, but performance analytics is staying performance analytics. It's staying PA. And that is ServiceNow's in-platform way to monitor performance over time and detect service, process, and workflow potential issues and bottlenecks. Any questions with any of those, Rob?
No, seems pretty clear to me.
It's definitely clear once you read ServiceNow's definitions of them. Before that, it was a little confusing to me, but it definitely started making more sense as I read through their glossary. So the next thing I want to get to is data visualizations. So roughly speaking, this is the new landing spot for your traditional reports in ServiceNow. The report as a noun is going away. So I'm not going to say, after we do this migration, I'm not going to say, hey, Rob, I just created this report, go check it out. You're going to call it a data visualization. But this is where you can create traditional reports, but there's more you could do with them as well. And I believe that is a big reason why we're driving to this different terminology. And we'll see that in a little bit here. But this is where the traditional reports will likely land. So just keep that in mind. Reports become data visualizations. KPIs and indicators. So this is also roughly speaking the new landing spot for performance analytics indicators. And my current understanding is that the configuration of these is not immediately changing. So this is just the surfacing of those indicators within the platform analytics experience. So if you want to go set up a new performance analytics indicator, I believe you do that in the same place. I would be somewhat surprised if that is going to be the case forever. But for now, KPIs and indicators is where you will go to consume these indicators, use them in dashboards, whatever you might need to do there. And then lastly, dashboards are still called dashboards, but the infrastructure, configuration, and delivery of these have all been overhauled. So while the term stays the same, the meat of how these are served up is totally different. And I think there's quite a bit of an improvement here too, which you'll see in a bit. Any questions, comments, anything I missed, Rob, as you've been diving into this, anything that would be helpful to those listening?
Yeah, I think, and we're going to go into the demo so you know everyone can actually see the differences and start to understand it by actually seeing it. But while we're stating these are the terminology changes today, I think when you're thinking about educating your user base, both your builders and consumers of reports and dashboards, communicating the why behind these changes is going to be very important. And Mitch touched on this, you know, as a part of the setting the stage, but we know there's a lot of user frustration, user confusion, having to go to multiple places for reports, dashboards over here, performance analytics, the analytics hub. There's a lot of these different places that, yes, users have gotten used to, but there's also been confusion along the way. The terminology changes, there is a good reason for that, and it is to consolidate all of those things into this new single experience and keep that top of mind when you're preparing, you know, organizational change management, user trainings around this. There is a big payoff here. And users don't like change. A lot of people don't like change for different reasons, but focus on the why and the benefits behind the change, not just the fact that, you're going to have to call things a different, different name in the future. So we're going to go into the demo next, and it'll become a little bit more clear, but keep in mind the why behind it.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and get a new share going here. And we'll just hop into one of our environments and we'll start walking you through some of these things. Just going to confirm I'm still logged in. I am. Fantastic. So the first thing we'll do, let's just type platform analytics. And depending on what release you're on, um, I believe almost every customer, unless they're somehow way behind, they should have access to platform analytics here. So when you type platform analytics, you'll see this application menu with the modules. For now, let's just check out the analytics center. And the way I've been thinking about this is essentially the jumping off point. This is a very good landing spot for somebody who's maybe trying to find something that they need, potentially for builders as well. So you see a few things here. You see the search, you see dashboards, and you see data visualizations, which again, this is for most people in the beginning. As you migrate, this is where your reports will land. A couple of things I want to call out. The ask a question about your data. Uh, Today, this largely appears to be the existing NLU, the natural language query. So you could type something in like active incidents and ask, and it'll try to surface or generate something new for you. I anticipate this will be somewhere where you'll see more and more analytics and potentially even AI pumped into here, but for all intents and purposes, this is similar today to the NLU querying that you could do historically. Okay, dashboards. So you've got bookmarked and certified. It's certified. This is something I want to talk about just because I think this is fantastic. Certified gives essentially your centralized reporting team within ServiceNow, along with potentially any reporting outpost teams you have within your reporting strategy, a place where they can serve up standard dashboards that follow any guidelines that your reporting team might have. And people know that when they land on one of these have been vetted. They follow everything that you're trying to follow as an organization. And these are places they could go to for data. So think about these as a way to really standardize some of these dashboards. You won't see anything that, Jane Doe went and created and didn't certify. It wouldn't pop up here. You also have bookmarked, so you have the ability to personally bookmark dashboards that are important to you. And same thing applies with the data visualizations down here. We have the bookmarked and we have the certified. Any questions, Rob, before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So what we want to do here is just kind of do old versus new. Let's just go open a new tab. And we'll go ahead and start by creating our reports. So we'll go to reports. All the way down here, we'll click view run. Could have clicked create new, but just to show you this whole experience, when this loads, we can go and click create a report. And we'll keep it very high level and simple here. And this is probably very familiar for most people on here. Again, this is, I think, similar to that search bar you see in the Platform Analytics Center, where you could start with an NLU query. But let's just say we want to look at the open incident. So you have the ability to select the source type, collect table. This will let us search our tables in this environment. Select incident. We'll go to the next. And for now, let's just create a simple score. Once we have this, we go in and we could actually update the filter. So I'm just simply going to put active is true, run, and then I'll click save. From here, you've got the sharing ability, which should be pretty familiar to those of you who have worked in here before. You could save it, which I'll go ahead and do. Um, so pretty straightforward. If we want to do the same thing, we would come back to the Analytics Center. We'd click Create New Visualization. Pick your visualization type. We'll do single score. And then from here, we need to add our data source. So let's click Add Data Source. It'll take us to this modal. And you can see I've already got this prepped here, but let's act like we are just starting from scratch. We could type incident, and you'll see not just tables, you'll see indicators as well. So this is what I was getting into when I said data visualizations is more than just the traditional reports, but also where you would do those traditional reports. So we'll select incident, and then you could add your conditions, and we'll say active is true, and we'll go ahead and add this source. So now you can see we've got that same score we had back there, 2,494. Up here, we could give it a title. Might have looked at the wrong spot there, right here. And you've got all sorts of settings with these as well. Let's go ahead and save. Give it a name. And now that is created. You've got that. And you've got the ability from here to add to a dashboard. This is also the menu where you could do any sharing, exporting, scheduling, or add to my bookmarks, which I'll go ahead and do. One thing I'd want to call out, just because it was something I personally struggled with at first, the first time I landed in here, is unless you're going to go as a next step to add to a dashboard, the only way to get back to the Analytics Center is by clicking the module, it appears. Just a little nuance I noticed. I would have thought there'd be some menu item there that would plop me back there. But when we go back there, we see everything again. If I refresh, I can see my bookmarked data visualization that I just created. So pretty similar flow, right, Rob?
Very similar in the flow. I think one thing to point back to when you think about the first chart you built in reports, the only data sources that you saw there were certified data sources or standard tables. And when you went to build that data visualization in the new experience, you saw a few more data sources, which includes your KPIs or PA indicators. It also includes user experience analytics as a data source. So that's pointing back to one of the payoffs for not just changing the terminology, but unifying everything, where if you go to build a data visualization, all of those sources are there for you from a data perspective. So just wanted to point back to that as one of the payoffs, associated with the new experience.
Without a doubt. And one more thing on data visualizations before we just go touch on dashboards is the Analytics Center, like we mentioned, will show your bookmarked and certified, but you can click this data visualizations module and it will give you many more. So this is probably where you're going to do quite a bit of the discovery, especially if you're a builder, to go manage these, organize them, bookmark them, share them, or even certify them. So this kind of goes back to my comment about navigation. The Analytics Center does not appear to be the place to do everything. It's really that landing spot. But then to get into the granularity, you use these other library modules. With that, let's just do the same thing for dashboards. So with that, I'm just going to type dashboards. One thing I'm sure you've all run into this as well is pretty much every application has some sort of dashboard. So typing for dashboards returns a lot of results. But if we just come down to performance analytics dashboards, it'll get us to the right place here. So here, if we want to create a new dashboard, we just click create a dashboard. This should be relatively familiar to most people on this webinar. We'll go ahead and submit that. and then it's going to drop us into the dashboard editor, which most people should be pretty familiar with. From here, we could start adding visuals, reports, whatever we need to do. Let's just do reports, and we'll pick the one we just created, open incidents. Click add, you'll see it in here. There's some flexibility in this old way of doing things, but not necessarily a ton. You could create some layouts. You could drag these. You can't move them wherever you want to necessarily, but if you have multiple reports on here, you could stack things. So that's generally the legacy way, the way you're doing it today, more than likely. If we want to do the same thing in platform analytics, we go to create new dashboard, and you've got an option here, which is pretty cool. You can do an inline editor, which is similar to what we just showed, except with quite a bit more flexibility. And then you have the technical editor, which we won't go into today, but this is very advanced. It's essentially just the UI builder where you can do whatever you need to do, which is very powerful, very flexible, has a learning curve without a doubt. So most people, as they even say here, will be using the inline editor, which is recommended for most users. So let's just go ahead and give this a name, spell it correctly, and we will create that new dashboard. Now here, it looks somewhat similar to what we had before. We could add a new element. Let's do a data visualization. You could create one from scratch here, or you could go to the saved visualizations. Let's see if we could find the one that I created a minute ago. There we go. I believe it's this one. And you could also select multiple visualizations and add them at the same time if you want to, which is pretty handy. You've got all sorts of settings around the elements that are on here directly. You could also do chart interactions if you want to. So you go to a different data view. You can go directly to records. A lot you could do there. This appears to be a little bit more flexible. It's the same concept as the old editor, where I'm not going to be able to, go drag this anywhere on the screen you see. But there are more drop points, it appears, than what we had before. So you could get elements down here by essentially stacking charts on top of each other. You could also see data visualizations aren't the only thing available. So you could add your headings, images, even rich text, filters. All of that is available to put onto here in a more free-form editor than what was there before. And again, if for whatever reason, the limitations, which there aren't a ton here, are holding you back from doing what you want to do, you could try to step into the technical editor, which really should let you do whatever you need to do. So at this point, we could save changes. And since we technically modified that data visualization, it will ask us if we want to save the changes for that only for this dashboard or change the actual element that we added onto there. For now, we're just going to save changes for this dashboard only. At this point, we've got our dashboard. You've got the menu here where you can do all the things we talked about before, whether it's sharing, whether it's adding to a bookmark, you can do that as well, which I will do. And that's essentially the new dashboard editor. It's really just all we're doing here is scratching the surface. We're not trying to show you every nook and cranny of this because I know that's going to be continually expanded, which is part of the point of making this migration is you won't see a lot of these advancements on the legacy, the way you're doing it today. The new way is where I believe we'll see all of the innovation continually show up in future releases. And from here, I could exit editing mode, which will take you to what the consumer of the dashboard would actually see when they come to this. And again, same thing I noticed here. It was just slightly jarring I just didn't have a way to get back to the analytics center without clicking this. What are your thoughts on old versus new here, Rob, at a high level?
I mean, at a high level, I think just in terms of what you can do and the flexibility available from a dashboarding perspective and what individual charts look like on a dashboard, there's a lot that we didn't even show in the demo today that if you go back on your own and build a chart and just kind of surf through the chart options, drag it around, there's a lot more flexibility in the new platform analytics experience compared to the old. So, we gave the high level today, but definitely encourage you to go and explore and get a feel for like what new flexibility you have from a chart, configuration standpoint and how dashboards are configured. I think you'll be pretty happy there. And then just get a feel for the new navigation. We're showing you around today, and new is going to take some time to get used to, but I personally feel like it is simpler to navigate and get around and find things once you kind of get used to the new terminology. So hopefully this high level was helpful for you today and that you'll get a chance to, start to explore on your own.
Without a doubt. And again, in my mind, the biggest value add is everything is in one place. You can see, when we type dashboards before, we got all sorts of results, reports, you get all sorts of results. You type platform analytics and you have everything you need in your application menu right here. And just like we did with the data visualizations, you could do that with dashboards by clicking this module and seeing everything you've got today. And the last thing we'll touch on in this demo is we'll just show you performance analytics and then indicators. So with performance analytics, if you wanted to go actually dig into one of the indicators, you could go to the analytics hub. And once this loads, you could go look at one of these indicators. So we could go active users, which takes you into the detailed view of this particular indicator where you could interact with it. Going forward, if you go back to KPIs, which again is the rough translation here for the performance analytics indicators, we could see that same one we were just looking at. And this is what you'll see when you land on that. This is somewhere that I've seen ServiceNow investing a lot in. I think you're going to see a lot of great things coming here. But this is where you would land if you're trying to dig into one of those indicators. And that's really the super surface level of platform analytics, some of those rough translations. The ServiceNow does have a migration tool. You could run it today. Not everything will migrate perfectly. So it's something that at some point you'll want to use that tool. When you use it will really depend on your organization, your strategy, the organizational change management around it, just really what you're trying to achieve. But I do urge everybody to start poking around in here at a minimum, just to get their head around this new way of interacting with the data that everybody will be doing coming in the Z release Zurich. With that, let's hop back. We've got a couple more slides. Rob, we walked through, like I said, that surface level of what things are going to look like. But really, we probably need to talk about what we're telling our existing customers about this.
Absolutely. And we have gotten some questions in the chat that we're definitely going to cover at the end. It's ranging from questions about the migration and maybe how to mitigate some of the risks, as well as some about the tooling and demos. So just want to call out that we're going to cover those at the end.
Awesome. Very helpful. Yeah. So we've just got 2 slides left, and it's really talking about next steps. So something we're doing with all of our existing customers is we're offering essentially audits and guidance around their current environment. And what we recommend really depends on where those customers are, which stage of their reporting maturity, their data maturity they're at. because there will be different guidance depending on where you're at. If you're stage zero and you're just totally not using any of the data capabilities available to you today, might be a perfect time to migrate after you get a strategy in place. Who knows? So it really depends on where they're at. So this is something we're doing with customers today is helping them come up with a plan. But in general, things everybody should be doing right now is first get a current state understanding. So if you don't know where you're at today with your existing data, analytics, reporting, dashboards, this will probably become a fire drill for you if you wait till the last minute to do it. If you're on this webinar right now, you're probably already ahead of that curve. So that's good. Like we mentioned, it's also the perfect time to solidify your data strategy within ServiceNow. You know, who's your reporting owner? Who are the reporting teams? What kind of reporting model are we going with? Are we going with a truly delegated? Are we going with a centralized? Do we have those reporting outposts within the process areas? So this is the time to, if you have a strategy today, solidify it, look at things that are working, not working, make tweaks if you want to. If you don't have a reporting strategy, that's fine. A lot of customers are in the same shoes as you, but I would really urge you to get one in place, even if it's just a very simple strategy. You want some sort of strategy in place. Also, go ahead and put this on your roadmap. Like you might not be solidly slating where you're going to pull the trigger on the migration, but make sure it's in that backlog. Make sure it's something that's being talked about and considered as you're planning out your allocation of your ServiceNow resources, especially going into 2025. But there's a lot of planning that needs to be on that roadmap as well that really should be starting right now if you haven't already started. Next, you could start getting everybody aligned. So we showed it, we talked about it. URLs are going to change, where people navigate to build something, where people navigate to consume something is all going to change. So we really are urging people to get started early, give people a heads up that things will be changing. Expect communication from us, expect training from us. Basically constant communication. So get everyone aligned, especially on any strategy you're putting in place or modifying going forward. Give them those timelines, let them know so it's not just you upgrade to Zurich and all of a sudden it's a total fire drill and you're up till 11 every night just trying to put out fires, help everybody find what they need. We also strongly urge people to practice data hygiene. You know, some environments right now have 100,000 reports, and those teams may have no clue whether or not those are being used. So all of those will probably end up getting migrated to platform analytics, and they probably don't need to be. And the reason that's so important is after you run the migration tool, especially for critical dashboards or reports, which will now be data visualizations, uh, I would not just trust that everything migrated over directly because the simplest change, if something didn't translate, could totally steer a portion of your business off track. So you'll be wanting to go through all of those with a fine-tooth comb to make sure everything translated properly and everybody has what they need. So if you could get that list of 100,000 reports in your environment, even down to 30,000 that are actually used and required, that's going to save a lot of time and resources on the back end of this migration. And lastly, I'm just reiterating it, start planning now. The longer you wait, the tougher this is going to be. It's going to be rocky, but if you start planning now, you can make this a very smooth transition for your user base, and you could really solidify your strategy and put any changes you want to make in place. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity. Rob, anything I might have missed here or things that you're talking about with prospects or customers?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're getting some questions in the chat and they're kind of aligning to areas that I would want to add a bit more commentary. So let's just start addressing some of those and we'll both be able to share our thoughts. Mitch, the first one that we got, can you elaborate on any potential challenges we might face during the migration and how to mitigate them?
Yeah, I think so. There's a brand new way of filtering. I think it's going to be much better in the long term. But that is something I'd be keeping an eye on with any of your dashboards that have filters. That could be a challenge. Um, we've heard some issues with dot walks today. I think this is going to mature over the coming months and releases, the migration. But I can't emphasize this enough. The biggest challenge is going to be the people. Like letting all of those people who can build reports know that this is happening and make sure they know how to do things in the new world. Like the technical issues you may or may not run into are going to pale in comparison if you don't have a good change management plan for your organization. So definitely think about the technical details, but really lock in on the people part and how you're going to roll this out, because that is what is going to cause the most issues by a far margin.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I break it down in the same way. You know, you've got the actual technical aspect of the migration, and the biggest challenge or kind of question mark there is the volume. Like we've been auditing, reporting environments the last couple of weeks and months, and it's shocking to customers how much they have today in terms of reports and dashboards, and they really don't know what is being used. And that's something that we're helping them through with, with the audit tool that we have. But understanding what you have today that actually needs to get migrated and making the decisions on what do we have today that it's actually a good opportunity to retire or just kind of archive, so to speak, and not actually migrate over to the new tool set. Because to Mitch's point, if something does not technically translate one to one, whether it's a report config on a dot walk or a filter that is going to work differently in the new experience, that's a QA process that does have to take place and managed. So, getting a handle on the volume and really having a strategy for what you want to take over so that the technical aspect of that migration is manageable is one piece. And then, like Mitch said, it's how are you going to train and familiarize your user base to build and find things in the new interface, and especially users that aren't so familiar with ServiceNow, getting them comfortable with the new terminologies, different functionality that they can expect, and being able to communicate the benefits to them of the move so that it's not viewed as a painful chore. It's viewed as a migration that has a great payoff for your organization.
Without a doubt. And, you know, all of those assets as well. If you have 100,000 reports today, you have 3,000 dashboards. Like, are those being linked to in other places that you might not be thinking about? Like, are there SharePoint links? Are there, I don't know, links and presentations in a totally different platform? Uh, so lots to cover. And if the people who are managing those don't know about this, it will be an issue. And one thing I did want to call out, just because we didn't mention it, but I heard you mention the auditing we're doing with our customers today. As mentioned, we're taking a step into the advisory services really out of need for our customer base and the ServiceNow customer base. We're running reporting audits for customers where we come in and do both qualitative and quantitative analysis of the current environment, the current strategy, where people are at, what's being used. We're doing reporting strategy workshops to help people get a strategy in place or fine tune their existing strategy. And we're also going to be helping customers through this migration, kind of being that expert who's seeing the entire ServiceNow customer base go through it. We've got a lot to bring to the table there. And we're working through our existing customer base right now. But if anybody wants that help who's not currently working with VividCharts, we're happy to help as well. So just reach out to us.
Absolutely. And Mitch, we're going to keep working through some of these questions here. So certified reports you called out in the demo. We did get a question on what the workflow is to get a data visualization certified. So part of that is just how you do it in the tool. which we can speak to, but part of that is, does kind of tie into what's the reporting strategy of the organization. Um, it is just a checkbox on a report or dashboard to mark it as certified, but that is role based. So you need to have the general admin role or either the report or dashboard admin role to be able to check that certification box. So how you manage that internally and who has those roles is very much a part of what's your defined reporting strategy, who gets to control that. And for users that don't have that control, what's the process for them to come and get a dashboard or data visualization certified? So Mitch, any thoughts or additional commentary on that one for report and dashboard certification?
Yeah, well, it might technically just be a checkbox that's, locked down by a role. Depending on the reporting strategy, like you said, we'll be in a lot of cases, we'll be recommending building out an actual flow for approvals to make sure everybody who needs to be involved in certifying a dashboard are, involved. So people know that getting certified, because if that becomes sort of a willy-nilly checkbox that's always getting checked, it will just totally defeat the purpose.
100%. So Mitch, next question here. What about challenges for a company that just started using Snow and don't have a volume of reports and only a couple reporting admins?
Might be a perfect opportunity for you to just make the cutover. I can't say that for certain without knowing what all you have going on. But the longer you go before migrating, in your case, where your users aren't deeply entrenched with the existing way of doing things, it will just reduce the amount of technical debt and things you have to migrate whenever you pull that trigger. So it's something I would definitely have a conversation about. We're happy to hop into that conversation and give you any level of guidance we can. But I do believe newer customers, I would be trying to urge them to just start from platform analytics.
Yeah, agreed on that. And the other piece to that is you can kind of take some of the, I guess, the warnings we're having for, customers that have been on the platform for a while that have major reporting and dashboard sprawl, where there's tens of thousands of reports and dashboards out there, and they don't have really defined process to maintain that over time. So while from a tooling standpoint, you're in a great place to more just start or cut over to the new experience early, you're also at a great spot to make some definitions on your reporting strategy and how you're going to maintain dashboards and data visualizations over time and get those workflows in place so that you have a strategy and an approach to reporting on the platform that's going to scale with you.
Without a doubt.
Okay, and the next question we have here, Mitch, as a business analyst, how can I leverage the new features of platform analytics experience to drive better decision making and enhance our reporting processes?
That is a great, I'd say, relatively loaded and broad question. I think the biggest thing that I touched on before is um, if you're in a position where you can simply start using that for net new creations, I would personally consider that as a business analyst, because that is where you're going to see the continued development and improvement from ServiceNow. One thing that was demoed, I believe, in Q3 of this past year by ServiceNow, or more recently than that, actually, predictive analytics. So that is under the roof of platform analytics. And that essentially lets your data do the work for you while you're sleeping. You could set thresholds up that actually kick off flows. Like if something looks out of bounds, it goes and sets off a whole chain of events that help you look into it. So I think you'll see more and more of that. I also think we'll eventually see AI baked into this as well. So, today it might not be so much about what's there right now. It's more about what's going to be coming pretty rapidly that won't be there where you're doing it today.
Yeah, and I think what I would build on there is, again, from just a raw tooling perspective, there are new capabilities new ways of filtering. It's all coming into one place. So there are just raw tooling benefits to the new experience that will open up more opportunities and more value for you to be able to provide as a business analyst, but more on the reporting processes and trying to figure out how can we get better there. I think you got to start with where do you feel like you're at today? Assess your reporting program and workflow as it exists today, and then start to map out where you want to go and view it as a maturity curve like Mitch had on that previous slide. So, it's easy to get distracted and look at, okay, what are very specific things we could approve or improve in the moment, but having a picture and a roadmap of where you want to go short and long term will help guide you on what new tooling you want to take advantage of and when. So assessing where you're at today and really defining like where you want to go and what you want to progress to, so that you're taking on the new tooling in the right order and applying it against where you want to go as an organization. Awesome. And we're still monitoring the live stream feed. So if there are other questions, we'll keep the webinar and stream open here just a couple of more minutes. But if there aren't any more, we do appreciate everyone's time today and want to call out. We're going to continue to stream and post content about this migration, what the new tooling is bringing to the table, and how you can strategize around it as an organization. So this isn't a one and done. We're going to continue to keep you informed out there as this as the date towards migration gets closer and closer. So keep looking for more from us in the future. And again, if there are any other questions for today, drop them in the chat and we'll respond.
And Rob, I did just see one. Is there a change to scheduled reports? Not seeing it in the new space. It ultimately works very similar to how it did before, just you find it in a little bit of a different place. Again, since we're moving away from the report as a noun, you can go to one of the data visualizations, which I'm going to do on the side here, so I'm telling you the right things. We can go to one of those, and in that three-dot menu that I showed before where you could share, there's also a schedule option. And this is where you would actually schedule it, who it goes to, what it says, when it goes out, things like that. So for all practical purposes, it's very similar, just found directly on those data visualizations. And I looked at that before. I actually believe it's, don't hold me to this, but I believe it actually uses the same setup of the schedule reports potentially on the back end, but I'd have to dig into that again. And I'm not seeing any new questions, Rob.
Awesome. Well, I think with that, we can close out the stream for today. Again, we're going to be putting out more content and streams on this topic going forward. And if, as we're talking through that, starting point of auditing, getting an understanding of where you're at today and what you need to migrate, we've got tools, we've got an offering for that. And, you can book a call with us just to learn a little bit more about it, right? So feel free to get in touch with us or book a call directly on our website. To dig more into and just understand what that offering includes, what the process and timeline is for it. And again, really appreciate everyone's time today and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.